Set up by friends for a date? I discovered an amazing connection with the most incredible woman. Jake fidgeted with the collar of his shirt, a subtle reminder of how out of place he felt. The cozy cafe was packed with laughter and the rich smell of coffee, but he could barely hear over the racing thoughts in his mind. This was supposed to be a casual outing, a blind date orchestrated by friends who insisted he needed more than just legal briefs and courtroom dramas. But who were they to think a night out would extinguish the shadows of expectation looming over him? His father's legacy weighed heavily on his shoulders, the esteemed judge known for unwavering integrity. That was the weight he carried every day. He felt more like a pretender than a lawyer, more of a shadow than a son. As he saw Emily approach, an earnest smile on her face, nerves churned deeper in his stomach. They exchanged hesitant greetings, both of them vying for some semblance of ease. He could almost taste the caution in the air, their words barely scraping the surface of real conversation. But beneath the awkward glances and polite exchanges was an ember of curiosity, until the topics shifted to art and social justice. It was clear she cared about her work, that it mattered to her. Jake struggled to muster enthusiasm while finding himself drawn into her earnestness. "Do you know?" she began. "Most people would think funding the arts is a luxury, something that comes after the essentials like education or health care. But could you imagine a world without creativity?" Jake felt an unexpected surge of defensiveness rising within him. Wasn't he also fighting against a system that reeked of privilege? Before he could stop himself, he challenged her. "But what is merit without privilege?" he snapped, eyes blazing. They exchanged fiery arguments, both of them lost in a passionate debate that stirred unfamiliar feelings. With every word exchanged, he felt something awakening inside, some long-buried part of himself that demanded acknowledgement. It was exhilarating yet terrifying. Through their back and forth, Jake felt an unsettling battle line draw between his past and whatever future was taking shape before him. The competing desires felt like a firm tug of war. Should he submit to the well-structured life his father carved for him? Or could he dare to voice his own beliefs even if that voice was shaped by the very privilege they were arguing against? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the conversation deepened, Jake felt something akin to anguish. His internal turmoil had transformed into a force he couldn't ignore. Emily's words began to permeate his defenses. They shaped the doubts festering beneath his suit. He could sense the raw fight in her voice. The frustration echoed in her eyes, both of them struggling against the weight of a world that constantly frustrated their ambitions. Just as he felt the walls closing in, she revealed her struggles with securing funding for not just her art programs but for herself as well. The unexpected weight of her vulnerability intensified Jake's own feelings of inadequacy, soaked in immense internal scrutiny. Faced with her honest articulation of disillusionment, Jake couldn't deny the stirrings inside him. What was at stake was more than just a blind date. It threatened to lay bare the life he constructed, testing whether he could pursue whatever lay beyond his father's rigid expectations. A dawning realization began to settle within him. This wasn't just an outing. It was a confrontation with his standing in life, igniting a terrifying challenge that could unravel everything he thought he knew. As the final moments approached, the tension crackled, leaving him standing at the brink of choosing between stepping free or retreating back to the shadows of a life defined by others. Jake sat across from Emily, the warmth of the cafe now feeling stifling. The vibrant conversations and laughter around them faded as his thoughts spiraled inward, settling on her final words. Words that had laid bare a deep-rooted struggle. He caught her gaze, searching for something, a sign that she understood the gravity of their exchange. Did she sense how close he was to unraveling the tightly wound fabric of his carefully curated life? Uncertainty mingled with excitement as he steadied himself. I can't help but wonder, what if merit doesn't have to be defined by privilege? The words escaped him almost involuntarily. In the depth of his heart, he longed for freedom from the chains tying him to his father's expectations. But could he articulate it without fearing the fallout? Emily leaned in, her eyes brightening, eager and quizzical. "That's a powerful thought, Jake. What does that mean for you?" Her simple inquiry sent shockwaves through him, prompting a cascade of realizations. The conversation wasn't merely transactional, it felt transformative. The lines between debate and introspection blurred, revealing a glimmer of clarity amidst the chaos. Jake exhaled slowly, contemplating the voice he'd silenced for too long. "I've often felt like I've inherited this path. This idea that being a lawyer is all I can be. But I want to carve my own identity, to reflect who I truly am, not just the expectations imposed upon me." Each word seemed to liberate a piece of his spirit that he had stifled under polished suits and courtroom decorum. Emily nodded, an understanding spark lighting her expression. "You're not just a title, Jake. You're passionate about justice, aren't you? You fight for the truth. What if you were to draw strength from that instead of feeling confined?" As she spoke, Jake felt the familiar whispers of doubt nagging him. Could he truly forge a path of his own while building upon his father's legacy? What if this connection with Emily revealed something he wasn't ready to confront? But another voice countered, one that inspired him to listen to the freedom she offered. A light flickered in his internal struggle, a stirring that dared him to dive deeper. But he hesitated. He had spent years building walls around his emotional landscape, protecting himself from the discomfort of self-examination and the vulnerability it entailed. Could he risk everything by stepping off the tightrope he had walked for so long? "Tell me more about what you wish you'd do with your life," he asked, redirecting slightly, curious about how someone like Emily translated passion into purpose. She launched into her dreams of art, illuminated by sincerity, revealing how creativity had been both a refuge and battleground for her beliefs. Each word painted a picture of a life unencumbered by the stifling weights he carried. His mind raced with the realization that he had never fully embraced what made him feel alive. Striving for his father's approval had drained the color from his pursuits. Yet here sat Emily, vibrant, determined, and unapologetic. The questions she posed encouraged Jake to explore the shadows he had long avoided. "Maybe," he proposed hesitantly, "we both need to fight our respective battles in our own ways." The idea took root, infusing him with an unfamiliar resolve. Perhaps this moment was an early chapter in a longer narrative about his journey, a collision of self-discovery and the urgency to rise above the expectations that haunted him. A moment of silence lingered thick with anticipation, until Emily broke it with a soft smile. "If we're to influence the world positively, I believe we must step into our authentic selves first. How do you envision stepping into yours?" Her question hung in the air, echoing through him like an invitation to uncover his true identity. Jake felt the depths of his resolve strengthened as uncertainty washed over his prior doubts. He leaned forward, invigorated. "I'll have to decide what I want to fight for, not just in my career, but in every aspect of my life." In that moment, a revelation struck him. This was merely the beginning of a much larger evolution. But now the stakes had changed. The fear of losing himself no longer paralyzed him. Instead, it propelled him toward a deeper understanding of who he could become. And just as he opened his mouth to share this newfound clarity, a loud voice echoed from across the room, jolting him back to the present moment. He turned, heart racing, to see an unexpected face emerge from the crowd, a figure from his past that might just complicate everything he was beginning to uncover. Jake's heart thudded loudly in his chest as he recognized the unmistakable figure weaving through the tables. It was Eric, an old college friend who had once been a confidant during the years he'd wrestled with the clutches of familial expectation. The years had weathered Eric, yet he wore a confident smile that contrasted sharply with the disarray Jake felt inside. "Jake!" Eric's voice sliced through the cafe's warm din, pulling attention toward their table. "Wow, it's been ages. How have you been?" The enthusiasm in his tone felt jarring against the backdrop of Jake's tumultuous thoughts. Jake forced a smile, his mind racing as he grappled with the shift in energy. "Hey Eric, I've been, well, Busy, you know, life and all. He gestured vaguely, trying to conceal the internal conflict flaring up again. Eric's eyes flicked to Emily, narrowing with subtle curiosity as if weighing the dynamics at play. "And who's this?" he asked, his tone shifting to playful. "Date night? You finally let someone pull you out of the lawyer cocoon?" The jab hit closer to home than intended. Jake glanced at Emily, feeling a mixture of embarrassment and pride. "Not exactly," he said, attempting to downplay the situation while his thoughts whirled. Emily, perceptive as always, seized the moment to extend a hand. "I'm Emily. Nice to meet you, Eric." Her poised demeanor radiated an effortless charm that made Jake feel even more out of step. They exchanged pleasantries, but Jake's attention drifted. Eric's presence was a reminder of his past decisions, those moments spent adhering to the expectations laid out for him. The laughter shared over late-night study sessions faded under the ever-present weight of his current struggle. Yet, as Eric leaned in to share a story, Jake felt the urge to seize the moment. He couldn't let the familiar comforts drown out his resolve. "Actually, I've been reevaluating a lot lately," Jake interjected, surprising even himself with the directness of his tone. "I want to embrace the changes happening in my life." Eric raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What changes?" Hesitation brushed against Jake's heart. Would revealing his turmoil lead to judgment? Yet the thought of stepping into his authenticity outweighed fear. "I've been working to define my own path, separate from what others expect of me." Eric laughed lightly, but Jake caught a trace of skepticism lurking beneath. "That sounds like a classic midlife crisis waiting to happen. You sure you want to throw away your stability?" The remark stung, and an ember of anger flickered within him. Stability. It was the suffocating grip of safety he had relied on for far too long. "I don't think it's stable if it stifles who you are," Jake shot back, the words flowing with a fervor he hadn't anticipated. "Fair point," Eric replied, visibly taken aback. The atmosphere shifted, weighty with a newfound intensity that Jake had not expected. He felt the thrill of speaking his truth, igniting something deep within him, a sense of empowerment that made him bolder. Emily watched with a supportive expression, her presence a steadying hand on his shoulder. Before Jake could fully process the surge of feelings, Eric cleared his throat, regaining his composure. "If you're serious about this path," he said thoughtfully, "it might be worth exploring more than just those abstract ideas. What about something tangible?" Jake's mind raced, hearing the truth in Eric's words despite the apparent condescension. Could he dive deeper into the very essence of what he wanted to fight for? Was it possible that this unfolding moment was leading him toward a confrontation with his past? "Maybe," he replied, a new spark igniting within him. "What I need is a tangible way to redefine all of this." As Jake looked between his old friend and Emily, they stood like pillars on either side of his turbulence, one representing the weight of familiarity, the other embodying the unfathomable potential for growth. The resolve that had begun to shape his vision felt solidified in the tension that held them together, and just as a wave of clarity washed over him, Eric's smirking tone broke the weighty silence. "Well then, here's an idea. Why not put your words into action? Let's make a bet. You go through with something that challenges you, and I'll stake my month's paycheck against it. What do you say?" Jake's breath caught. The challenge was more than a mere wager. It was a confrontation. The moment had arrived for him to define his identity once and for all, and his pulse quickened with a whirlwind of excitement and trepidation. Could he rise to the occasion and stake a claim on his authenticity? With every fiber of his being, he felt the answer approaching, but the full weight of that decision felt simultaneously exhilarating and terrifying. What would he risk to unravel the life he had so carefully constructed? The cafe buzzed with familiar chatter, but Jake felt detached from the world around him. The challenge Eric had thrown down hung in the air, a palpable tension that felt both thrilling and daunting. What could he possibly undertake that would truly reflect his desire for change? The question coursed through his mind like a current, alive with possibility, yet fraught with the weight of expectation. "Are you in or what?" Eric pressed, a teasing grin playing at his lips. For a brief moment, Jake's thoughts spiraled into uncertainty. Images of his safe, predictable life swirled next to glimpses of adventure. But deep down, a flicker of determination surged, fighting for dominance. "What about a public speaking engagement?" Jake said, surprising himself. Eric's eyebrows shot up, an expression that read disbelief and intrigue in equal measure. "You? On stage? Now that I've got to see." "Oh, come on, it's not that far-fetched," Jake defended, a surprising confidence seeping into his tone. "I've always had ideas. I can share them. This is just about stepping out of my comfort zone, right?" Emily's gaze softened, her encouragement palpable. "It's a great idea, Jake. Challenging public speaking is a profound way to voice who you are." This seemed to spark something in Jake. The prospect of standing in front of an audience triggered a mix of fear and excitement that he hadn't felt in ages. What if he could reflect his journey to those around him? What if he could connect directly to their lives as he defined his own? "Well, if you're serious," Eric mused, leaning back with a contemplative look, "I can help set up a local speaking event. Maybe pitch a topic about redefining success? A personal journey? It's quite a timely theme." As they discussed potential topics and strategies, Jake's initial panic morphed into a sense of anticipation. He envisioned himself on stage, overcoming the anxiety that had held him back for too long. It was more than just speaking. It was about reclaiming his voice and rewriting the narrative of his life. Yet beneath the excitement lay a shadow of doubt. Could he truly articulate his experience in a way that resonated? The idea of vulnerability left him unsettled. Would people judge his story or dismiss it entirely? "Remember what your goal is," Emily reminded him, her voice steady. "This isn't just about them, it's about you. It's about confronting the expectations and celebrating your truth." Her words sparked a deeper resolve within him. He was no stranger to the discomfort of expectation, but this seemed different. This was his narrative to share, and he intended to share it in its entirety. Over the next hour, they mapped out the structure of his talk, outlining key points and drawing connections to personal anecdotes. With each brainstorming session, the excitement mounted. Jake began to solidify his ideas into a cohesive story, one crafted from years of navigating the unrelenting pressure to conform. However, a knot of anxiety clenched inside him. The fear of stepping into the spotlight still loomed, igniting a bitter inner dialogue. What if he failed? What if his authenticity was met with indifference or, worse, ridicule? As they finally parted ways, Jake stood at the cafe exit, the weight of his decision settling on his shoulders. This was more than simply embracing a challenge. It marked the beginning of a journey into the depths of his own identity. He took a deep breath, the cool evening air swirling around him, invigorating yet intimidating. Perhaps this gamble wouldn't just be about exposing himself to a crowd, but also about facing himself, the parts he hid even from his own reflection. With determination welling in his chest, he thought of the days ahead, practices, speeches, and possibly the kickstart of a transformation he never anticipated. Nonetheless, a nagging question echoed within. Would true authenticity forge deeper connections or push others away? Uncertainty churned through him as he contemplated his first practice with friends. The next step loomed large, and the stakes felt astronomical. Could he not only redefine his path but also confront the lingering shadows of his past? The moment had come to face the truth of who he was meant to be. Jake paced back and forth in his living room, the weight of his decision pressing down like a thick fog. The notes he'd hastily jotted down filled his coffee table, a chaotic collection of ideas and fears. He thought about the first rehearsal he had planned with Emily and Eric. The thought of unearthing his vulnerabilities made his stomach twist. He longed for their support, yet the prospect of exposing himself, truly unveiling his soul, was terrifying. Was he ready for this? He had spent far too long dwelling in the shadows of self-doubt, and now, with each step toward the spotlight, he felt those shadows creeping closer. The thought of standing up there, facing an audience, made his palms sweat. But somewhere beneath that anxiety was a flicker of excitement, a belief that perhaps this was the antidote to years of silence. His phone buzzed, pulling him from his spiral of discomfort. It was Eric asking if they were still on for that practice session. With a deep breath, Jake tapped out a reply. Absolutely. As he prepared for the session, he shored up small affirmations in his mind. This was not merely about speaking, it was about sharing his authentic self with others. If he could articulate his journey, perhaps he would inspire others to embrace their messiness too. Arriving at Emily's apartment, Jake felt an adrenaline rush. She greeted him with a supportive smile, the kind that said she believed in him even when he struggled to believe in himself. Eric joined moments later, arms crossed, ready to both critique and encourage. Let's get started, Emily said, taking charge. Think of this as a conversation, rather than a performance. Jake swallowed hard, his throat dry. He stood up, clutching the edge of the table for support, and began to speak. As the words escaped his lips, he felt their power wash over him, each sentiment pulling him deeper into his narrative. He spoke about the pressure of societal expectations, the moments he chose security over passion, and the realization that had ignited his current quest for authenticity. Everyone's so focused on success, he declared, his voice quaking. But we rarely think about what success really means to us as individuals. It's time we redefine it on our terms. He felt energy build, thoughts coalescing into clarity. But just as the momentum surged, a stutter crept back in. Would they believe him? Each flicker of doubt pulled his confidence like a tug of war. Great start, Jake, Eric chimed in, breaking his reverie. But we need to dig deeper. What about fear? How did it shape you? Jake hesitated, grappling with the question. Fear had always kept him tethered to mediocrity. He recalled the moment he turned down opportunities, the invitations he ignored for the safety of solitude. Fear is a powerful thing, he admitted, the vulnerability catching in his throat. It shapes how we see ourselves. It can make us shrink or inspire us to grow. Emily nodded, encouraging him with her eyes to press on. In that moment, he felt a flicker of honesty and began to reveal more. A story from years past spilled forth. His first failed attempt as an intern, the crippling anxiety that followed. Yet he also recalled overcoming it. The small victories that had eventually spurred him on to pursue bigger dreams. As he spoke, he noticed his voice steadying. The supporting nods from Eric and Emily fueled him. But the thought lingered. How would the real audience react? Would they empathize or critique? This notion tugged uneasily at his gut, reminding him of the innate desire for acceptance, yet that feeling was slowly being replaced by a fierce resolve. After several runs through his narrative, Jake concluded the session, breathing heavily but exhilarated. His words lingered in the air, and beneath the pressure of expectation, a moment of clarity flickered. This journey was less about their perceptions and more about embracing every aspect of who he was. As they debriefed, Emily's feedback struck a chord. Your story needs to evoke connections. It's not just personal, it touches everyone in some way. Jake nodded, recognizing the truth in her words. This was about transforming his fears into a shared human experience, a bridge between him and his audience. Yet, deep inside, unease lingered. The looming date of the speaking engagement was closing in. He feared the judgment he might face in front of a larger crowd. The next few days became a whirlwind of practice and reflection. Could he truly reclaim his narrative? How would he confront not only the audience but the judgments of his past that still whispered in his ear? Questions swirled in a chaotic mix, tantalizing yet daunting. Just as he thought he had grasped the essence of his story, a new truth emerged. Vulnerability was not just about exposure. It was about connection. He stared into the mirror, ready to confront the reflection staring back, eager yet apprehensive. The confrontation was inevitable, but as he prepared himself, one question remained. Were the walls he built around his heart strong enough to shield him from the pain of rejection, or ripe for the breakthrough he had yearned for? As the day approached, the stakes intensified. In the end, it was not solely about the speech. For Jake, it was about a personal odyssey, one where he could truly find himself. But could he step beyond fear and fully embrace the unknown waiting just beyond the stage? Jake awoke the next morning to a mix of determination and anxiety. The rehearsal had ignited something within him, a faint but powerful ember of confidence, still surrounded by the familiar shadows of self-doubt. As sunlight filtered into his room, it illuminated not just the space but also his thoughts that swirled like leaves caught in a gust of wind. He had made a commitment to himself, one that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Today was different. He had been delivered a challenge from both his friends and, more importantly, from himself. They had set up a casual lunch with an acquaintance, Sarah, someone who had crossed paths with him through mutual connections. He had mentioned to Emily and Eric that he felt distinctly unprepared to engage with anyone beyond the speaking engagement. After some back-and-forth banter, they had convinced him it would help him practice articulating his thoughts in a less pressured context. But as the time approached for their meeting, a spark of apprehension ignited in his chest. Would he be able to forge an authentic connection in such a casual setting? In his mind, the stakes felt just as high as standing on that stage. If he could not speak to Sarah genuinely, how could he expect to resonate with the larger audience? With a forced calmness, he donned a simple outfit that he deemed casual yet attentive, and reviewed his mental notes on connection and vulnerability. He reminded himself that this wasn't simply about impressing Sarah or trying to fit a mold. The real task was to allow himself to be seen. He practiced affirming mantras, familiar phrases that had begun to ring true. Connection happens in authenticity, and let my story unfold as it should. Arriving at the cafe, he spotted Sarah seated at a corner table, her blonde hair catching the light like strands of gold. She appeared engaged with her phone but looked up as soon as he approached. The warm smile she offered felt reassuring, quelling some of his nerves, though they still jittered beneath the surface. "Jake, so good to finally meet you," she said, standing to shake his hand. Relieved by her friendly demeanor, he settled into a chair, grounding himself in the moment. "Same here. Eric and Emily never stop talking about how amazing you are," he said, his voice steadying as the conversation began to flow. They exchanged small talk, navigating the usual questions about interests and work. But the deeper he dug into their dialogue, the more he realized this was not merely an opportunity to practice, but a chance to explore who he was beyond the confines of expectations. Sarah listened. Her attention felt genuine, prompting him to share experiences he often glossed over. He brought up his frustrations at work, the feeling of being boxed in by rigid definitions of success. She echoed his sentiments and even extended her own tales of searching for meaning in her career. As they spoke, a realization washed over him. This was a partnership of sorts, not just a casual meeting. Sarah's thoughtful reflections added depth to his understanding, and in return, he could see she found value in his perspective. There was an aliveness in sharing their journeys, a dance of mutual vulnerability that fueled his desire to express himself fully. Yet, as moments of silence crept in, Jake wrestled with the urge to flip the conversation back towards safer topics. It was then he felt an internal tug-of-war, a battle between self-preservation and the urge to connect authentically. "What about fear?" he blurted suddenly, stolen by the memory of his latest rehearsal. "I mean, how do you deal with it when pursuing what truly matters to you?" Sarah blinked, her surprise morphing into thoughtfulness. "Fear can be paralyzing, but I find embracing it, like we're doing now, creates space for connection. It's almost as if accepting fear allows you to shift the scales from anxiety to honesty." Her words resonated, and he realized he hadn't just found clarity in the act of sharing. He had been gifted an unexpected lesson in introspection. With every exchanged thought, Jake began to see how vulnerability could cultivate genuine relationships, making human connections more profound and impactful. As their lunch neared its end, something stirred within Jake. The weight of his own apprehensions began to dissipate, revealing the possibility of a new chapter in his life, one where he could embrace who he was becoming, where connections weren't defined by fear, but liberated through honesty. Yet right then, as unformed plans crisscrossed his mind, uncertainty loomed again. While he had experienced a spark of revelation today, how would that translate to a larger, more demanding audience? Could he channel this newfound understanding of vulnerability into his speech? The upcoming engagement waited on the horizon, a challenge that felt larger than any he had faced yet. As he and Sarah said their goodbyes, he felt an urgency bubbling within him. For Jake, the real question remained. Could the lessons he learned today guide him through the storm of public judgment awaiting on that stage? Or would fear once again hold him captive? The following day dawned, and Jake awoke not just to sunlight streaming through his window, but to a palpable pressure in his chest, a reminder of yesterday's revelations. They were still fresh and intoxicating, but the impending public speaking engagement loomed larger than any moment he had faced so far. The paradox of feeling empowered yet terrified coiled tightly within him, and he realized that he needed to harness the lessons learned from his lunch with Sarah if he was to overcome the fear that threatened to engulf him. He spent the morning pacing his small apartment, rehearsing his speech in front of a mirror, trying to find that sweet spot between authenticity and performance. Each slight smile from his reflection felt reassuring, his nervousness swirling like fog. Those affirmations he had repeated the day before echoed in his mind, grounding him even as he grappled with the uncertainty of whether he could truly channel his insights into something meaningful for an audience. He remembered how Sarah had spoken with sincerity, occasionally leaning in as if to emphasize the importance of honesty in any effective communication. Inspired, he shifted his approach. Instead of simply reciting information, Jake focused on crafting a narrative filled with raw experiences and genuine emotion. Perhaps within that vulnerability lay the strength he so desperately sought as he prepared for his speech. At noon, he felt called to return to the cafe where he had met Sarah, hoping to absorb the spirit of the conversation they had shared. The atmosphere buzzed with laughter and clinking dishes, and as he settled into a corner table, Jake wrestled with reminders of his earlier self-doubt. Though he relished the warmth of those memories, the question of how he might find similar connections before a crowd nagged at him. He took out his notebook filled with scribbled thoughts from his previous conversations and began to revise his talk. The more he engaged with his own feelings on paper, the more he internalized the idea that connection was not just about audience engagement, but sharing his journey, his struggles, aspirations, and what it meant to fearlessly reveal his truths. Alongside the adrenaline of potential failure, he began to feel an excitement bubbling up. By weaving his experiences with the notion of overcoming fear, he found a way to transform his apprehension into fuel for connection rather than dread. Just then, he spotted Sarah walk through the door, her radiant smile as contagious as the energy around them. Perfect timing, he thought. Inviting her to join him, Jake felt a continual thread weaving through their acquaintance. They dove into a conversation marked by familiarity. His heart raced as he hesitantly shared snippets of his evolving ideas for the speech. To his surprise, Sarah listened intently, providing feedback flavored with her own insights into connecting through storytelling. As they conversed, Jake learned not only about her journey but also how much he valued her perspective. It illuminated pathways he had yet to explore. Each shared experience became a compass directing him closer toward his authentic voice, spurring new thoughts on how to articulate profound truths rather than superficial narratives. The coffee cups drained and the sun dipped lower in the sky, yet they leaned deeper into their discussion. Jake could feel the pulse of something deeper than friendship forging between them, an unexpected connection thriving on shared vulnerabilities. But amid the warmth of this budding interaction, an unsettling realization surfaced. The very ideas he had been exploring would soon face the ultimate test in front of an audience. "Are you truly ready for this?" a voice in his head cautioned, stark against the background of his excitement. What if this connection didn't translate? What if the magic he had with Sarah fizzled once faced with the judgment of strangers? As Jake bid Sarah farewell, the weight of the upcoming speech loomed heavier, mixing exhilaration with the tension of doubt. The moment of truth was nearing, yet he hadn't yet discovered if his insights would fortify him against the currents of self-judgment and fear. Could he transform the connection he had begun to forge with not just Sarah, but with his own authentic self into a moment of triumph on that stage? Uncertainty and anticipation gripped him, and as he stepped into the street, Jake knew the time was ticking down. The next chapter awaited him, one where he would have to confront not just the audience but ultimately himself. Jake's heart pounded in his chest as he walked away from the cafe, the cadence of his thoughts battling against the thrill of his budding connection with Sarah. He gazed at the cityscape before him, the buildings towering like the doubts swirling in his mind. Each step felt heavy, laden with the weight of expectation. The speech wasn't just a professional obligation. It represented a confrontation with his innermost fears, a public unveiling of his vulnerabilities. Returning home, he plopped onto the worn couch and opened his notebook, pages filled with frantic scrawl, from potential anecdotes to snippets of deep, personal reflections. The earlier excitement he felt while discussing his ideas with Sarah began to wane, making way for crippling self-doubt. Could he extract the essence of those conversations and transform them into something captivating for an audience? The reality of that question gnawed at him, constricting his chest and sowing seeds of panic. Frustrated, he closed the notebook, his fingers rubbing against the worn cover. What had initially seemed like a compelling story now felt like an insurmountable mountain. He leaned back, allowing his gaze to wander around his apartment, each piece of furniture holding some memory of solitude. The vibrant energy of the cafe, the warmth of Sarah's laughter, felt so distant now. Would he ever find the courage to express such authentic feelings to a room full of strangers? In that moment, he decided to move. He needed to shake off the paralysis of uncertainty that had crept in since leaving Sarah. He slipped on his sneakers, tied them tightly, and left his apartment, determined to breathe life into his surroundings. As he exited the building, the night air enveloped him, crisp and invigorating. He navigated through the streets, pace quickening as he focused on the rhythm of his footsteps, one after the other, steady, deliberate. Each step became a method to combat his anxiety. He stumbled upon a nearby park, its pathways illuminated by soft lampposts casting gentle shadows. He took a seat on a nearby bench, the cool metal grounding him, providing clarity he desperately sought. He reflected on Sarah, and how she had shared her own fears and triumphs. The realization struck him. The shared vulnerabilities had fostered a connection he had never anticipated. Maybe that was the key. He pulled his notebook from his bag and began to write again. Instead of focusing solely on performance, he drew from the same authenticity he cherished during his time with Sarah. He sketched a timeline of his life, marking significant fears, decisions, and moments of triumph. An intimate exploration of who he truly was. This exercise shaped a deeper narrative, allowing him to map out where he came from and where he yearned to go. With newfound clarity, he began to redefine his speech. It was no longer a daunting obligation but rather a chance to connect, to challenge his fears and inspire his audience by demonstrating the journey of self-discovery. But as the realization of his progress unfolded, another layer of doubt poked through the excitement. Could he truly stand before a crowd and lay bare his soul? Would they connect with his story? Or would the fear of judgment consume him once he stood on that stage? Holding tightly to the pen in his hand, Jake inhaled deeply, embracing the weight of his uncertainty. This was it, an opportunity for growth, for authenticity, for genuine connection. As he left the park, his mind buzzed with insights, yet the shadow of doubt lingered. Tomorrow was the speech, and with it came the risk of failure. The urgency of the coming hour pressed heavily, but in that moment, he resolved to embrace not only the excitement, but the fear as well. The time had come for him to face an audience, but even more crucially, it was time to face himself. Where would that confrontation lead him? Jake awoke to the sound of his alarm blaring, its mechanical urgency pulling him from a restless sleep. He rubbed his eyes, feeling the weight of the impending day settle over him like a heavy cloak. Today wasn't just another day. It was the day he had been spinning in circles, planning and replanning, trying to visualize every possible outcome of his speech. The better part of the night had been consumed by thoughts of Sarah, the warmth of her laughter intertwining with the knot of anxiety that had formed in his stomach. After a quick shower, Jake donned a crisp shirt, the fabric feeling foreign yet invigorating against his skin. He took a moment to stand before the mirror, searching his reflection for the resolve that had flickered briefly in the park. Was that flicker enough to ignite a flame? He scrutinized his expression, searching for courage hidden within the lines of self-doubt etched on his face. Stepping into the kitchen, he brewed a cup of coffee, the steam swirling upward, carrying with it the fleeting energy of possibility. Each sip felt like a ritual task, grounding him further as he turned back to his notebook. The pages were filled with a patchwork of ideas, but today he focused on a singular point: connection. How could he make the audience feel as if they were part of his journey instead of merely spectators? Jake spent the morning rehearsing in front of the mirror, pacing across his cramped living room. The words began to flow more naturally, as if each syllable had found its rightful place in the tapestry of his narrative. Yet, as he practiced, that familiar creeping sensation of vulnerability whispered doubt. What if they failed to see his honesty? What if he stood in stark silence, exposed and vulnerable, revealing himself to a void that offered no reaction? The thought left him breathless. Shaking off the mental fog, he took a deep breath and set out for a nearby cafe to gather his thoughts before the speech. Walking through the familiar streets, he immersed himself in the surrounding energy, the chatter of passers-by, the laughter of children playing. It reminded him of his connection with Sarah and how he had felt seen in a way he never anticipated. A new resolve began to form. He wouldn't just speak, he would share. Arriving at the cafe, Jake selected a seat in the corner where he could observe the ebb and flow of daily life. The barista recognized him and flashed a smile, further grounding him in this moment. As he sipped his coffee, he began jotting down the most poignant memories from the shadowy timelines in his notebook, focusing on the moments when fear had given way to triumph, moments he could share to inspire others. This would not be a speech about self-doubt. It would be a testament to perseverance. The clock on the wall began to tick down, and a sense of urgency washed over him. With each passing minute, his resolve hardened. He was ready to redefine this speech. It wouldn't be defining who he was, but redefining the very nature of his fears into a story of growth. As he stood up to leave, a voice in his mind challenged him. What if, beyond the speech, the experience led to something greater? What if confronting strangers while sharing his truth opened additional doors, new connections, deeper relationships, opportunities he hadn't imagined? What if this experience was a catalyst for more discoveries about himself? Walking towards the venue, Jake's heart raced. Not solely from anxiety, but with the thrill of embracing uncertainty. He was not just heading into a room of strangers. He was stepping into a space where authenticity could cultivate profound connections. The reality was simple. Today, he wasn't merely facing an audience. He was stepping closer to the essence of who he was meant to be. With every step, he reminded himself that each voice in the audience represented a potential connection, a chance to resonate beyond the performance itself and illuminate the truths that lay in the shared human experience. But what if the outcome was far beyond his expectations? What if he found not just connection but also a piece of himself he had never known existed? As Jake approached the venue, he felt as though he were shedding the layers of expectation that had once suffocated him. The facade of the polished lawyer, the shadow of his father's legacy, began to dissolve, revealing something altogether more vibrant. He stepped inside, the bustling atmosphere laced with the scent of fresh coffee, and found a small stage waiting at the front. A tangible electricity crackled in the air, the stark contrast of fear and anticipation igniting a fierce determination within him. Jake glanced around at the eager faces, many unfamiliar, yet all united in their quest for insight. In this moment, he understood the importance of their presence. They were not mere spectators, but potential allies in a shared journey of vulnerability. Just like his connection with Emily and Sarah, today, he sought to forge his own narrative and invite others to join. When he stepped up to the microphone, the familiar nervousness flickered within him, but it was accompanied by something new, a solid conviction. He began speaking, letting his story of internal conflict flow seamlessly into an exploration of identity, privilege, and the courage to confront what lay beneath. The weight of every practiced word felt like an anchor drawing him deeper into his truth. He recounted moments of doubt, the suffocating expectations, and the fears that had often chained him to conformity. He shared the discussions with Emily that had stirred those deep-seated desires for authenticity, and the unexpected connection with Sarah that pushed him to embrace his voice. Each revelation resonated with the audience, their reactions mirroring his earlier journey, a dance of shared understanding as they grasped the weight of his struggles. As he spoke, he felt an innate transformation happening, a liberation from the shadows that had cloaked his self-worth. The memories of fear transformed into a tapestry of hope, revealing that vulnerability was not a sign of weakness, but rather a testament to courage. Jake leaned into the rawness of his experiences, allowing moments of silence to hang in the air, letting the audience absorb his truths. Every intake of breath mirrored the shifting atmosphere in the room, faces reflecting empathy, nods of recognition affirming his journey, and a palpable connection built with each word. The transformation that had begun just weeks prior now manifested before him, his burgeoning confidence feeding on an unyielding desire to let down the walls that separated him from his authentic self. And as he neared the conclusion, Jake offered an invitation to his listeners. Fear is a universal companion. The real challenge is to allow it to coexist with our aspirations. Each of us has the power not only to confront our shadows, but to illuminate others' paths as we do. Let's redefine success together, not solely by titles or accolades, but by the courage to be true to ourselves. The applause crashed around him like a wave, vibrant and alive. It was a chorus of support, recognition, and acknowledgement of the transformation within himself and between him and his audience. Jake stepped back, stunned by a flood of emotions. He had not only shared his story but had unveiled a new identity, one that embraced vulnerability as strength. Walking off that stage, Jake felt triumphant. The weight of judgment no longer bore down on him. Instead, it had been replaced by a solid, growing self-awareness and confidence. He had proven to himself that he could carve his own path, intertwining the legacies of those who had come before him with the authenticity of who he now was. In the days that followed, he began receiving messages from audience members, each expressing gratitude for the courage it took to share his truth. They were inspired, many stepping forward to share their own struggles and journeys of self-realization, a cascade of raw, unfiltered stories coming to life. Jake embraced this ripple effect, embracing his role not just as a lawyer but as a storyteller, an advocate for authenticity. He began participating in workshops, using his experience to cultivate conversations focused on vulnerability, justice, and personal identity. Transformative sessions that bridged the gaps between individuals searching for connection. As he reflected on the journey of the past few months, Jake understood that the completion of his speech marked not just a singular achievement, but the onset of a new chapter. He had emerged from the shadows of expectation, crafting an identity that honored his past while boldly stepping into the future. Today, Jake stood solidly on that new foundation, recognized for his competence and accepted for his authenticity. The fear of judgment no longer held power over him. Instead, he carried profound satisfaction in his heart, a testament to both personal and professional growth that would continue to unfold. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your engagement matters, and sharing your thoughts in the comments energizes our community. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion.